Howdy Beans, and welcome back to the Howdy Beans podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, I've got a bit of an interesting end of the month topic because we spent all of January celebrating not just my birthday, but also some fantastic animated, underrated movies from my childhood. I decided to do something a little bit different. Something I've actually been in the planning stages for a very, very long time, and I figured this is the best time to do it. But before we get into all of that, I want to do with housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So you can make sure that you follow me on X at nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, make sure to leave a 5-star rating. You can also listen to the podcast on Good Pods as well as Apple Podcasts. So today's topic is games I played in December. So how this new series is going to go and what it means going forward is that this is not something that's going to be guaranteed every single month. This is not something I'm going to be doing like from December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. It's not something like that. It's just if I play, because I play a lot. The idea behind it is that I play a lot of video games. Some of them I play for myself. So I'll play games that I just feel like I really want to play this game, but either I don't have the time or the want to do a full review of the game, or it doesn't really fit into my £5 bargain or bin series that I do. So this series that I want to do, it allows me to talk about video games more, but without having to do full-on deep dive reviews into games. It is literally like, it could be, say, for example, this month I played X, Y, and Z game. I thought this, I thought that. And it's got quick sort of short reviews of the games I played for the month. And then sort of that's it really. So, it gets a bit more gaming know-how for you all, as well as it allows me to just talk about video games more, because I feel like that is one thing that was missing last year, was that I didn't talk about video games enough. I did a lot of movies and I did some book reviews, and I started to do the £5 bargain or bin series, but I just didn't talk about video games enough, and I want that chance to do it. So this is the chance that allows me to do it. And like I said, going forward, it's not something that it's potentially going to be every month, because there might be a month where I play games that I'm playing for the podcast and I don't want to go into detail about them because I want to do separate reviews on them. Or it could be the fact if I didn't play anything new that month, you know what I mean? So it'll be sporadic. It might be, you might get lucky and there might be one for January, like in next month, or there might be one for February, or there might not be. But it's just something I wanted to do so that I could talk more about video games. Really, that is the main thing about this new sort of series. So I hope you all like it. Hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, on to the first game that I played in December. So the first game that I played for December was Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Now, I just want to say it here. I am a big fan of Dragon Age. I'm a big fan of BioWare. If you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know that one of my favorite series of all time is Mass Effect. I absolutely love and adore that series. I reviewed the first 3 games last year for the podcast, and hopefully this year I'm going to be doing a review for Mass Effect Andromeda. But I am a big fan of BioWare. I even, I bought Anthem, I pre-ordered it, played it. I actually quite enjoyed Anthem. I just feel like they should have stuck with it, but they never did. I love Dragon Age. I've played all of the Dragon Age games. I played all the DLC. I even own, I can currently see them on my shelf, collecting dust. I own all the novels for the Dragon Age series. I've had them for years. I've never touched them. I will do eventually. I just kind of want to get through the Halo books first. But I will get round to them eventually, because I do love this world and this universe. And I think Dragon Age is like one of BioWare's most underrated series. Like, everybody just played Mass Effect, and a lot of people just forgot about Dragon Age, which is a shame. because it is a really fascinating and unique and incredible world. And one day I do really want to do a deep dive into this world, because it is just incredible what BioWare was able to make and achieve here with Dragon Age. That being said, my first impressions of Dragon Age Veilguard is that I do enjoy it. I just want to state that for a fact. I did enjoy myself with this game. I know there's a lot of criticism and there's a lot of people saying the game's woke. Don't listen to all that. It's not, to be honest. And I know there's a lot of people who said about the bad writing. Yes, there are moments where the writing is a bit naff and it's not as good as it used to be. I completely agree with that at parts. And other parts, there were moments where it didn't bother me, or I didn't notice it because I was just enjoying, what the experience, really. But what I will say about this game, in my personal opinion, is that it's a safe bet. And what I mean by that is the fact of BioWare played it safe here, whereas with, say, for example, with like Dragon Age 1, Dragon Age 1 was a kind of like an homage to Baldur's Gate, an homage to those old-fashioned RPG sort of games where your protagonist doesn't talk, where the dialogue choices that you choose, you are the voice, you are the speaker, and then you choose your adventure, and there's a lot of gore, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of sort of really brutality in this world, in this dark sort of fantasy, sort of epic world, really. And then they went to sort of Dragon Age 2, and you got the Hawk family, and the whole idea with Kirkwall, and the Canary, and the Templars, and the Mages. You had all of that, and after the introduction of Red Lyrium. Absolutely fascinating, still very much dark. And a lot of people, again, didn't much like Dragon Age 2. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a game I've went to go back and play many, many times in the past. But again, that was Dragon Age. And then Dragon Age Inquisition came out, and I really, really loved and enjoyed Dragon Age Inquisition. It expanded everything that I wanted from Dragon Age. It took it into a more open world and more characters, and it was just incredible. And I haven't replayed a Dragon Age game properly in different ways since Dragon Age 1. In Dragon Age 1, you could choose, you could be a Dalish elf, you could be a a dwarf from Orzammar, you could be a human noble, and each little story beat that you chose was a different story sort of introduction, really. If you was a dwarf in Orzammar, you could be a prince, or you could be part of the Carta, which is part like a mercenary group in Orzammar. You could be a Dalish elf who lives either with the Dalish in a camp, or you can be somebody who lives in one of the elves that lives in a city. Again, you can be a noble prince. Again, I think all noble. Is it noble prince, noble lord? If you play as a human, and each introduction was different. I always played as a dwarf. I think the dwarves in Dragon Age are absolutely fascinating. This whole idea that again, this hindsight being 2020, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But this idea that the dwarves can't dream, and because they can't dream, they have no connection to the Fade, which means because they have no connection to the Fade, they can't do magic. And I love that. I think it was absolutely fascinating, and that attracted me to play as the dwarves in every single game that I could, apart from Dragon Age 2. But whenever I had the opportunity, I always played as a dwarf, and I play as a dwarf in Veilguard as well, because I just think the dwarven culture and the dwarven lore in Dragon Age is incredibly fascinating. And again, I haven't done that since Dragon Age Inquisition. And I played for that 3 times. I played as a Canary, I played as a dwarf, a Canary, and an elf, because each time you played as a different race, the world changed, and the way people sort of interact with you and questions you and why you and how you evolved changed. And again, absolutely fascinating. And again, really great story, really intense characters and moments. And I absolutely love Dragon Age Inquisition. But, and this is where I'm finally getting back to Dragon Age Veilguard, the big issue that this game has is the fact of Mass Effect Andromeda came out. Again, I love it, I defend it, but it didn't work, sadly. It didn't do as well as BioWare would hope, so they moved on to the next one. They basically sacrificed Andromeda. They could have fixed it with DLC or with updates, but they sacrificed it for Anthem. And again, at the time, I think I've told this story before, so I won't go into it. But again, I was so much full of hope at that point. I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I really, really enjoyed myself with Andromeda. I still believe in BioWare. It's fine. There's no issues. It'll be okay. And I went off and I played Anthem. And again, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I'd hoped to be. But I stuck with it. And I wish that they would, carried it on, but they didn't, and it failed. And this is the key. Two big projects from BioWare absolutely flopped. So what that means for Veilguard is the fact of, because this game originally was meant to be something different. It was meant to be a live service game. That was the original plan. The problem is the fact of that BioWare aren't a live service multiplayer team. Granted, Mass Effect 3 had a fantastic multiplayer, which was great. But, that for me should have been a one-off. Should have been like, look, it fits Mass Effect, but that's where it should have stayed. Then they did a multiplayer sort of version dungeon crawler for Inquisition. I never got to play it because the servers never worked. But yeah, they did that. Then they did Firefight 2.0 with Andromeda, which was really, really good. But again, the servers didn't work because the game launched with a lot of issues. And then you have Anthem, same sort of thing, live service. But it's a multiplayer game. It doesn't work. It's not what BioWare is known for. But EA made them do it. And looking at the trends and looking at the people and players, they didn't want live service games. The love for these games are no longer there. And BioWare was hemorrhaging because of it. And EA and BioWare luckily made the decision of like, look, we're not doing live service. Like the next Dragon Age is not going to be a live service sort of game. We're changing it. It's going to be a linear sort of story like it should have been originally. And that's what they went with. So you got to imagine it got halfway through development, got changed. I think it actually went through a couple restructures and rechanges and rejiggers as it went through. So I wasn't surprised when I got this game myself. And I realized straight away they played it safe. It is a very safe bet, and to be honest, the game plays very much. And again, I don't mean this in a negative point of view. I really don't, because like I said, I really did enjoy myself with this game. But one thing that I do really sort of want to mention is the fact of, and again, I do have to preference, I don't mean this in a negative light, but it does definitely feel like Mass Effect 2. And I'll explain why right now with the story and the gameplay. So the story with Veilguard is the fact of, if you've played Dragon Age Inquisition, you know that at the end of it, again, spoilers if you haven't, but Solus is the bad guy, and that he's revealed as a Dreadwolf, and he's going to go off and he's going to open up the veil, and that he's going to bring down to cleanse the veil, to open it and then destroy it. Really, he has to release loads of demons. It will destroy the world, but he will be able to recreate a new one because Solus is a god. So this story picks up from there. You play as a character called Rook. You have been recruited by Varric to stop Solus. And I'm going to jump forwards a little bit because, again, I don't want to go into spoilers. And basically now you're now in charge to put a team together to stop Gillinane and... Hold on, I can't pronounce the other one. Basically, two elven gods, because I can't pronounce their names. So you've got to stop these two elven gods, and you put a team together, and this is where it feels, and I was sitting there, and when it hit, I was like, this feels like Mass Effect 2. And again, not in a bad way, because Mass Effect 2 is an incredible game, and I don't blame them for following the structure of one of their best games, because if it worked there, it would work again. But the problem is, what worked for Mass Effect can and does work for Dragon Age, but Dragon Age and BioWare have always been two separate things. They might be made by the same studio, but they've always had a different feel, a different style. Whereas if you played Dragon Age 2 and you played Mass Effect 2, they look completely different, and not just because one was set in science fiction. They had a different art style, they looked different, they felt different, they played different, the characters were different, everything was just different, so that if you didn't like science fiction, you could jump to Dragon Age, and if you didn't like fantasy, you could jump to Mass Effect. There was something there for everybody, right? So what I mean by this is the fact of there is a story beat where you go up against one of the villains, you go to take him out, and you realize, oh no, that we're not at our full strength. We need to recruit more members, and that the members that we've already got, we need to make them stronger. So spend more time with your companions. I.e., same thing happened in Mass Effect 2 when we first sort of meet the collectors. When we first go to New Horizon, we get there and that we meet the collectors and we realize, oh well, we almost had them, but we're underwhelmed, under sort of utilized. So I've got to basically now do loyalty missions for my companions, and that's what you do. You go off and you do a lot of loyalty missions, and you get to know your crew and you get to know them a lot better. And then once you've completed their loyalty missions, they then become sort of heroes of the Veil Guard, which again, fine. But when you realize that you're basically playing a fantasy version of Mass Effect 2, you might enjoy it, or you might go, this is not what I signed up for. And I feel like that is where a lot of the disconnect it has come from a lot of fans. When I noticed it didn't bother me. It just made me giggle. I was like, okay, because it kind of solidified that idea of, yes, they're playing it safe. And that's all this game really is the fact of it's a great game, it's a very fun game. And I'll be honest with you, the last few hours are some of the best parts of Dragon Age, the Veil Guard. Again, the only real sort of downside I have is the fact of coming off playing Dragon Age Inquisition, which was really incredible, really impactful. The story was amazing. The DLC was incredible, which really the Trespasser DLC shouldn't have been DLC. That should have been sort of, endgame content, because it really flushes out so much more of the story, ends a lot of story sort of beats for a lot of the companions, as well as it opens up and leads into who Solus is and what that means to him when it comes into this game. And it's just one of them sort of things of like Inquisition was great, and then you come to this and it's like, oh, they played it safe. But the thing is, they had to play it safe because I don't think BioWare could have afforded to be experimental and do something different, or carry on sort of the Dragon Age formula, because they needed the win. They needed a game that just not only just works, but also just appeals to everybody and appeals to everything really, because they had to. Because at the end of the day, I love Mass Effect, I really do, but to see another Mass Effect game, to know and to have a hope that the next Mass Effect game is going to be a success, this game needs to succeed. I basically, if you listen to my review of Mass Effect Andromeda when I went on to Chats in Armies show, one of my final points was the fact of BioWare's future and Mass Effect's future live and die on the next Dragon Age game. And I still stand by that. Now, luckily, this game has had high ratings, and that fans of the series have enjoyed it, and it's done really well in terms of sales, as far as I'm aware. I think it has, as far as I'm recording this anyway. So that is hope for sort of BioWare of like, look, it succeeded, it did well. That proves to EA that BioWare is still sort of a bankable sort of studio, and that gives me hope that BioWare hopefully kind of gets left alone to, but look, we did a good game, we made you money, EA. Now we're going to go off and make sort of Mass Effect, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Mass Effect is going to be incredible, whatever the new one is. I don't know where they're going to go, but I'm just excited for it. But yeah, that is the story really. It's Mass Effect 2, but with a Dragon Age skin, which is not a bad thing. It's just not Dragon Age. I think that is where it loses a lot of people. The gameplay is a lot of fun. The action. I played as a warrior, so I was able to throw my shield like Captain America, and I managed to get an upgrade for it, so it ricocheted off enemies and environments, and it was really, really cool. And the feel of it and the sound of it was fantastic. I didn't like that I couldn't control my teammates. One of the things that I loved about the previous Dragon Age is that it allowed you to have this tactical view. And basically, I could choose my abilities, but I could also choose the abilities of my other characters as well. And I had to keep an eye on them. And especially when you played in higher difficulties, you had to keep an eye on your own health and your own abilities and things like that. But you also had to put strategy into as well. So you couldn't just run into a fight. You had to be like, okay, so I've got to make sure I take the right people in with me, and that I've got and that this person has got the right skills and upgrades for this point, and this person has, and I want a range guy here, and I want a sort of close range here, and a rogue there, and blah blah blah. And you have to be tactical, and I miss that tactical aspect here because you don't get it. Because in this one, you don't worry about your companions at all. They can't die. They are invulnerable. All you've got to do is worry about yourself, which is fine. But at the same stage, what made the Dragon Age game so fun was that tactical approach, was the fact of I've got to not only make sure that I'm doing okay, but I've also got to make sure that my whole team is doing okay, that they are surviving, and that everybody is not like getting close, or if there's a mage, that they've got enough mana to do the high powerful magic, and hopefully make sure that they've all got good sort of health. And if they haven't, I've got to click on them and make sure they drink a health potion. And I like that strategy side of it, especially like when you played the end game bosses in like Inquisition. Some of the end game bosses in Inquisition, you could fight dragons. They were some of the toughest fights in the game, and I got destroyed by them. Which is the same thing you get in Veilguard. The end bosses are mostly all dragons. I beat them all. I managed to beat a level 35 dragon while being level 23. It took a while, but I managed to do it only because I didn't have to worry about my companions. I didn't worry about them dying. They would carry on doing damage and doing abilities. I would only have to focus on myself and dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge away from whenever the dragon was attacked, and I just shipped away. It was like playing Dark Souls: chip, 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 dodge, 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 chip, 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 dodge, dodge. And it was fun at first, and I felt badass for it. But at the same stage, it's like, well, I don't know. It's taken the sort of angst from it, that sort of feel of accomplishment of like, yeah, it might have killed me a few times, but we finally managed to get the right team, the right companions together, the right upgrades, and I managed to take that dragon down. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where like the gameplay's fun, but you've taken away what made Dragon Age gameplay fun was the tactical side of it, again, in my opinion. As for design, I know a lot of people sort of took the mix and it feels very Disney-fied, Marvel-fied. In a way, I somewhat agree. But at the same stage, I don't mind the look because it still kind of looks like Dragon Age, especially if you play Dragon Age Inquisition. It still has that Inquisition-y sort of feel. But also remember that we are in a different part of the world. We're no longer in Ferelden. We're in Tevinter Imperium. We're in a different part of Ferelden, so the architecture is not going to look the same. The environments are not going to look the same. But the parts that do, like the elven structures and ruins, they all sort of very much look like they did in previous Dragon Age games. The thing that I didn't like was that the Qunari looked too human. The Qunari have Qunari bodies, but they have human faces, which I don't like. Also, I didn't much like the look of the Darkspawn. Now, the game explains as to why the Darkspawn look the way they do. The reason they look the way they do is because of one of the gods is a controller of the Blight, and that their use of the Blight, which is what the Darkspawn are, has upgraded them, basically mutated them to make them more deadlier and more sort of ferocious. The problem is the fact of they look like zombies. They look like monster of the week. They don't look, I don't know. To me, they don't look terrifying. They just look like random monsters. They're cannon fodder, basically, is a better word I'm looking for. They don't look like Darkspawn, which again, the game explains as to why this is. And I understand it, and fair enough, I get it. I'm glad they explained it. But at the same stage, it's the fact of I just don't like the way they look, because I've gone through Dragon Age 1 and 2 and all the DLC and Dragon Age Inquisition with the Darkspawn looking a certain way, like Darkspawn, really, kind of like orcs. Like, it's a better way to explain it. If you haven't played Dragon Age, they basically look like orcs. To now you play them in Veilguard and they just look like mutated zombies, basically. That's it. Monster of the week. That's what they look like. There's nothing special about them. And it's just a shame with that. But again, coming close to my overall thoughts is the fact of, despite all of that, I did enjoy it, and I understand why they played it safe. And I'm not going to argue against it, because I know at the end of the day, it needed to be a safe bet in order to help Mass Effect and BioWare thrive and continue to make games. Because if this game failed, I don't know what that would have meant for Mass Effect. It could have I don't think they would have cancelled it, but there was a potentiality where there could have been a lot of sort of eyes on BioWare, a lot of pressure on BioWare by EA to either get it right, or change things or do things differently and not allow them any creative freedom. Or it could have been worse for worse. It could have been, like, that's it, we're cancelling Mass Effect, we're cancelling BioWare, we're shutting the studio down, it failed, we can't fund them anymore. So I say, you know what, it's a safe bet and it worked. And some people's going to hate it, some people are not. I disagree with a lot of people. I generally enjoy this. Take this for my opinion, right? Like I said, as somebody who loves Dragon Age and is a big lover of the lore, and granted, even though I haven't read the books, I own them. You know, take it from me. Yes, this might not feel like the Dragon Age that you once knew. It is new, and yes, it might feel like Mass Effect 2, which isn't a bad thing, right? But it's still a fun time. If you like Dragon Age, you might still enjoy this game. I did. I still had a good time. And I will say this: the dialogue at the beginning, and sort of the conversations that you have is a little bit of sort of, it's not great. But the last few hours, like, granted, you have to go through a good few hours to get to this point, but if you get to the point of the last few hours of the game and you start to uncover so many secrets and you start to uncover so many things and you start to learn, I don't want to throw in spoilers, but you start to learn things about the dwarves, you start to learn things about the elven culture, and you start to learn these new facts, especially me being an old time fan of this series and of this lore. Like, I was getting my brain blown of these all new revelations and what it meant, and that made me look back at the old Dragon Age games in a different light because of this new lore that I now possessed in my brain. If you're a fan, you're going to love those moments and you're going to want to stick around for them. And it's those sort of that dialogue and those moments in there is what really, for me, saves the game. So yeah, I still recommend it if you're a Dragon Age fan. If not, I would still say play the original Dragon Age games, and then by the time you finish with Inquisition, then sort of make your mind up if you want to go into Valgard. But I will say still, if you are on the fence, I would still say give it a go. Probably wait for it's on sale if you really must. But it is a good game, and I would say just don't listen to other people. At the end of the day, make your own decisions, speak with your wallet, and play something that you will enjoy. And I feel like you will enjoy this because it is a lot of fun. So for the final game that I played for the month of December was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I haven't really had a chance to talk about Indiana Jones on the podcast yet, but I am planning on changing that. I'm hoping that this year I can talk about the movies and maybe some of the other video games. But I am a huge lover of Indiana Jones. I grew up with the movies. I have very fond memories of them. I remember going to the cinema with my dad. It's a bit of a long story, and maybe I'll save it when I do the review of it. But I remember going to the cinema with my dad to go watch Crystal Skull and absolutely loving and enjoying it. And when they mentioned that they were going to do an Indiana Jones game by Bethesda, but it was being made by Machine Games. I'm a huge Machine Games fan. I love the Wolfenstein games, and if you haven't played the recent Wolfenstein games, you have not played. You haven't experienced how good they are as a studio. They're incredible. They just managed to do the action with the comedy, with the visuals so well, and I love their game. So when it was said that they were going to do it, I was just floored. And the game came out kind of like an early Christmas present. Came out at the beginning of December. I'd finished up Dragon Age Valgard, and as soon as I finished that, it was like, okay, all the other games that I'd planned to play over the Christmas period are going to be put on hiatus. I've got to play Indiana Jones because they were like spoilers going up all over the internet, all over YouTube was full of them being like, oh, this thing and this revelation. But I'm like, no, I can't. I just couldn't avoid it. So I was like, I've got to get into the mess and I've got to play it. And overall, my first impressions is that this is incredible. In my complete opinion, I haven't seen Dial of Destiny yet. I know people don't like it, but in my opinion, I feel like this is where Indiana Jones should be. Indiana Jones should live on and continue in video games and animation form. I love Harrison Ford to bits. I think Harrison Ford is the fantastic actor. And again, he is Indiana Jones, and no one could ever be Indiana apart from him. He will always be Indiana. He'll always be Han Solo. That being said, he can't do it forever. He is old, sadly, and he can't keep doing Indiana Jones. It's just not feasible. But the voice actor here, Troy Baker, does an absolutely incredible job as Indiana Jones. Like not even Indiana Jones, he does an incredible job as Harrison Ford. Like generally, if you did not know that Harrison Ford did not reprise his voice for the role of Indy in the game, if you didn't know it was Harrison Ford, you wouldn't know. It's as simple as that. He does that good that even I, knowing that it's not Harrison Ford, couldn't tell at times. At times, I was like, I don't know. I know it's not, but I don't know. That just not just how talented he is, but also of how brilliant he does an impression of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. It's incredible. And I feel like if you got him on to do like more video games of Indiana Jones, because this game is absolutely incredible and it's really, really successful and people are loving it and enjoying it. And this game will do gangbusters, and they're on about doing DLC as well, which I can't wait for the expansion to see whatever new quests they send Indiana Jones on, and then potential games in the future. He could carry on doing the voice. And if Netflix or Amazon or Disney or whoever decides to do a Indiana Jones animated series, kind of like in the vein of like the Legends of the Tomb Raider that Netflix did last year, I'd be completely down for it because he sounds like him. So I just feel like you have an animated like Indiana Jones, that would be incredible. It would be, and that's where I feel like Indiana Jones should stay now. I feel like we've done the movies, we can't do any more of the films with Harrison Ford, sadly. So it's time to go into a different avenue, go into video games. Obviously, we've already done video games, but like to keep going into video games, to go into animation, to go into animated movies, maybe. And I feel like both would be very incredible. But yeah, I love this game. I really did. I was blown away. I was there for the mystery. Like, what took me so long to complete it? And it took me almost to most part of the end of December to finish it. I think I actually finished it around the 22nd or 23rd of December, really close to Christmas Day. Was that I was playing it, and I'm one of these people that I'm not one. I can't just go from A to B on a video game. Like if you're telling me there's other routes and you telling me there's collectibles, and not only that the collectibles, but there are things to collect and it will benefit me, my how I play, or it'll benefit the story or anything like that, or maybe get a secret ending. If those sort of things are in the game, you bet you believe you that I'm going to stop what I'm doing to go find them. And in this game, because obviously being that sort of person when it comes to video games and being an Indiana Jones fan and just wanting to sort of embrace what it feels like to be Indiana Jones, because you do, you feel like Indiana 100%. I was against the idea of putting this game in first person when it was first being talked about, and I was like, oh, first person, that don't sound like a good idea. That sounds a bit of a stupid idea. But when you play it and you play India as first person, you that doesn't matter. You do generally feel, you get immersed into feeling like Indiana Jones. You're like, oh, I actually feel like Indy. So much so, like I wish I had played this on VR and just do this game in virtuality. Would be brilliant, and I'm sure they would end up. They're going to do that eventually. We will see. But yeah, like I was spending so much time just going about being like, I'll do the main mission in a minute. I've got to go into this tomb and raid it. And I've got to go find a stele, or I've got to go find a lost artifact, or I've got to find these like ancient relics that are all for the end game, which I'm not going to talk about. But like finding radio frequencies or doing field guides, there were side missions called field guides that you could go on, and they were all cinematic. Like they were just as important as fun as the main story ones. You'd go off on these field guides and you would do these separately. You meet different characters, and it was absolutely just fantastic. And there were many times where I just got lost. I just got lost, but I didn't care that I was lost. I was just like, I'm lost in a tomb, but I'm enjoying it. Like, this is the whole point. This is the whole feel of it. And like the visuals and the design is gorgeous, and the gameplay is really good. The fighting, like the physics in this are incredible. The fighting, like when you knock somebody out, like when you hit somebody, you've got the old whap sort of noise, the iconic sort of Indiana Jones whap noise. So when you hit somebody, if you go whap, 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 and then when they fall down, it's great. And it's just hilarious that I can pick up a hammer off a table, and I could either throw it at a fascist or a Nazi, or I can go up behind them and just whack them and knock them out. And it's hilarious every single time. It never gets boring. It's great. And even there are times where I just was like, I don't feel like sneaking around. And I had this really funny moment where I'm in the Vatican early on in the game, and I'm looking for sort of clues for a mystery. And this guard comes in. He goes, "Oh, alarm!" So I run around, punch him, knock him out, fine. Alarm's settled, everybody's calmed down. I go back to do this bloody combination lock to figure it out. And next thing you know, alarm, turn around, knock him out. Next thing I know, because there's a body trail now, you've got each guard finding a body going, there's somebody about, following the trail of bodies, finding me, knocking him out. And I don't think I ever posted it on Twitter. Oh, well, no, I did post it on Twitter, actually, I think. I actually tagged Bethesda UK, and then they gave me a like, which was pretty cool. But basically, if you go onto my Twitter page, if you go onto my photos, and you scroll down to around about December the 19th, 18th, about that, I basically posted a photo where I'm in a camp area, and it was, I think the caption I put was sorry, I panicked, and it's just me holding a rifle, and I'm just surrounded by bodies. Because I panicked because they kept coming and they wouldn't leave me alone. So in the end, I knocked a couple of guys out with all the things I could do. I broke all the intractable environment things you can pick up and whack people with. Then one guy came in with a gun, knocked him out, took his gun, used all the ammo in it, all the rifle bullets in it. Then I flipped the gun round, and this is what I love about this game. I flipped the gun round and I used it as a baton, and I took out the last few guys with this rifle. And that was it, really. And then the end result, I just saw red. I just blacked out. And next thing you know, I wake up and I'm surrounded by bodies. But it's one of those where the game allows you to do that. You can go loud, or you can go quiet. And it's a lot of fun. And that you can find disguises. And yeah, I just, the gameplay and the design is fantastic. The world looks incredible. The visuals are stunning. It's probably one of the best looking games I've played in a very, very long time. It is beautiful. And again, it's made by id Tech, and it's running on id Tech's new motor engine. And I'm if this is what Indiana Jones looks like, I can't wait to see what Doom Dark Ages is going to look like, because if this game looks as gorgeous, then that game is just going to look absolutely spectacular. And I can't wait for it. I haven't really talked about the story. I don't really want to talk about the story too much because of spoilers. But this is a perfect Indiana Jones story from start to finish. There are mysteries, there are things to work out. That's not just like the side missions and things you can do yourself, but in terms of the main story, there's mysteries, there's interesting, fantastic characters. Everybody you meet is so well. There's not a single person that you meet that's going, that's not a very interesting character. Every single character you meet, whether it be somebody you spend a lot of time with or you just have a one-off conversation with, are interesting. You basically travel the globe as well. The Nazi characters, the Nazi generals, Voss, he's creepy and he's weird. He's a bit of a fish face, to be honest. But again, he's a Nazi scientist. You're going to imagine he's going to look very freaky and weird looking. And then you've got like, you probably see it was in the gameplay trailer. The one Nazi goes choo 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 choo. I've seen it in the trailer. It made me laugh in the trailer. It made me laugh playing it in the game as well. I can't remember that general's name, but again, it has that machine game sort of comedy. That's what they're known for. If you played the Wolfenstein, their versions of the games, they've got hilarity and comedy in them as well, and I love them so much. And I can't wait for Wolfenstein 3, whenever that is, or if they ever get around to doing that. More than likely, it will be after, hopefully, fingers crossed, after they finish Indiana Jones, because I can't wait for that. But yeah, it's a great story. I wish I could go into more detail, but to be honest, once you get past, I'm trying to remember how the game goes. So I'm going to talk about sort of the introduction. So the introduction is basically the prologue of the game is the beginning of the first film, where you're going after the fertility idol. and you go for the trap, and it's a one for one, beat for beat. And it's fantastic. And as again, somebody who's an Indiana Jones fan, that was so nostalgic to be able to play that era, to go through, and to experience it beat by beat, scene by scene, and the cinematics and the visuals are all like perfectly one for one of the actual beginning of the first Raiders movie, which I loved. And then after that, you're at the college, you're working with the college, there's a break in, and you've got a giant, basically a giant man. Then he breaks in, you've got to fight him, and he steals an artifact, and that leads you on to the mystery of the Great Circle. And then you make your way to the Vatican, and you make your way to loads of other places. And I don't really want to talk any further than that. Just trust me when I say that if you like Indiana Jones, if you love Tomb Raider, if you love Uncharted, this is basically everything that you've ever wanted in one of those sort of games. And then it has Indiana Jones in it as well. It takes all the best things of Uncharted. It takes all the best things of Lara Croft, which, let's be honest, they were both inspired by Indiana Jones. So they take all of those things and what makes Indiana Jones so great, and then makes it into one big perfect game. And like, my overall thoughts is, if you're listening to this and you haven't gotten around to playing Indiana Jones: The Great Circle, do it. If you've got it on Game Pass, play it on there. If you haven't got Game Pass, buy it. It's fantastic. It's great. I had a fantastic time. Like I haven't finished everything. There's still things I've got to do. The last things I did before I did this recording was getting the last few radio frequency collectibles for Gina, and there was like a boxing ring you can find. Again, some of these things are completely missable. I only found the boxing ring by accident because I was snooping around the Vatican, just making sure I've been everywhere, and I found this this door that the guy opened it and said, basically he says, you're not allowed, only people of the fascists, basically of the Italian Royal Guard, can come in. So then you have to go off and find the disguise, and then once you find the disguise, you can come back and then you can go into the Fight Club, and then you can do that, and then you can do that there. You can do it in 2 other places as well, but again, I'm not going to mention them because, again, locations, spoilers. But you can also use those disguises, which I love. It's not only makes, like, you can go into the Fight Club, but you can use that disguise to now go into restricted areas that you couldn't go into before. You now can, because you've got the disguise and you haven't got to worry about the alarm. Like, there are a few enemies that will still be able to notice you or be able to see through your disguise, but as long as you keep a wide berth of them, you don't have to sneak around. You can just walk around, and then it makes those areas a bit easier. And like, some of them have keys as well that you can use to open secret locked doors and stuff like that. So it makes the traversal and getting around areas and finding collectibles and stuff like that a lot more fun. And again, I could wax lyrical about this movie. It's a movie. It's like a movie, to be honest. But this game, like I said, there's still loads for me to do. I've got to find all the ancient relics. I've got to find all the ancient artifacts. I've done all the field work. Like, there's so much more for me to do that I'm just excited. I'm excited to get back into it, to be honest. I generally really enjoyed it, and whatever they do with the DLC, I have a feeling. Sorry about that, my mic cut out there. As I was saying before it cut me off, I have a feeling that whatever there is they're going to do with the DLC, it's not going to be small potatoes. It's going to be a big expansion. Thinking on the lines of, hopefully, fingers crossed, 8 to 10 hours, hopefully. Because that's what I imagine it would be. Like, I wouldn't imagine they would do this long, really detailed story with all these extra collectibles and things to find, and then do like a 4-hour sort of DLC. I don't think they would do that. I feel like if they do story DLC, which I do believe they're trying about doing story expansions, that will look in, hopefully, fingers crossed, 8 to 10 hours. And there's more things to do with all the other tons of things you already have to do. So if you're like me and you love Indiana Jones and you want collectibles and stuff like that, then you'll love and enjoy this game. So yeah, those are the games that I played in December. I really had a fantastic time with games in December. I know Dragon Age Veilguard probably wasn't what I wanted it to be, and probably isn't what most people wanted it to be, but I still enjoyed it. Inquisition is still better, but again, I just hope that if the game does succeed, that it means that Mass Effect, the next one, will be better and more successful. This game needed to be safe in order for other things to fly, basically. and yeah, Indiana Jones was just incredible. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be doing one of these for January. It depends on what I'm playing in January. I'm currently installing Dying Light 2 because I've had that since Christmas 2022, and I didn't play it all of 2022. So I had it Christmas 2023, and I didn't play it in 2024. So that'll be probably what I'll be playing in January, as well as a few other things as well. But yeah, I don't know. I just really hope that people like and enjoy this little thing that I'm doing here. Hopefully, people do. If you do, please do let me know. Make sure again that you follow me on Twitter to be updated on everything that I'm watching and playing and all that jazz. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you listen to this on Spotify, again, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you leave a 5-star rating. And yeah, so thank you very much for listening. I will catch you all very soon in February. But till then, bye bye.